Hello, party people. Welcome back to another NRW video. That's right, another review for all our fans in internet land. My name is David Estacado. I'm here with my buddy from Another Nutty, the one and only Rob, the movie guy. What's good, Rob? How you doing, buddy? It's been a while.
It's been a while, and we've missed you all out there. We're sorry that we haven't been out here for some time here. We've been a little busy here, but we're back here to do a review, and a really exciting one at that, for a film that we're really excited to get into here in The Debt Collector. Oh, yes. But we'll get into that as well.
We're going to go back into the Scott Atkins man boner for Rob, the movie guy, and check out another...
A little stroke needed to be done there, but we'll be doing that for this review here. So let's get into the trailer real quick, and then we'll get into our thoughts.
Roll it.
There's someone with big balls and a fast fist.
Well, lucky for you, I got both of them.
Oh, have you now?
Yeah.
You ever driven a car like this before?
I ain't even ever seen a car like this before, mate.
Do me a favor. Watch the white balls.
$17,500 at the home.
We're here to see Oliver.
Asshole, you have the wrong house.
Go after them. This fucking shot at me. Were you hit? No. And go after him. Fucking hell.
So we're supposed to be debt collectors, yeah? We didn't collect anything.
I got this skinny, charming Irish motherfucker. But you cannot steal my Bosa Fabiosa. The boys will find me.
Fuck me.
Have you seen my suit?
It's the cheapest suit I've ever seen. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Where I can find Connor Mulligan.
Now's the time to be sensible.
Come here, What did you do? I asked you one thing, to watch the white walls, yeah?
There you have it, The Debt Collector. Another Scott Atkins action piece. Kind of, not buddy cop, but what would you call it? Buddy action flick?
Yeah, it's pretty much a buddy action flick here. It's a throwback to the old, the unlikely partnership of two people of opposite spectrums of their respective fields, parting up to do something that you wouldn't think they would be working together with here. And that is why I love this movie here, because it's a throwback to the old, 90s, I guess you could say 90s
action flicks.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird premise because, and we'll talk about it in the pros and in the cons, because it's about Scott Atkins' character, French, who owns this karate school that
is it a karate school? I thought it was like a martial arts.
Martial arts.
Doesn't specify what kind of school it was, other than just martial arts here.
So he's in debt. You know, he's about to lose the school. He needs to pay the rent, and he needs to come up with the money quick, fast, in a hurry. So his buddy, who he works with at the school, you know, he knows that he does some debt collecting jobs, stuff like that, and he pretty much his first day on the job has some of that little bit of Quentin Tarantino meets Training Day meets your English British gangster films, kind of like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. A little bit of that mixed in together. At least how I kind of, as I was watching the film, I kind of got that vibe. I was watching it, and I enjoyed it. I really did. And it was, the action sequences were fun.
Yeah.
Crazy, and the story, I just kept building up to this insane story and ending that I think we really want to get into.
Yeah. So let's get into some of the positives over here, because there's a lot that I want to get into, as you already can tell here. But right off the bat, the two characters here, French and Sue. Sue, played by an actor, as you see in the background there, Louis Mandylors, I believe is you pronounce his name here, who has been in the business for quite some time, who works for this guy named Tommy in the movie. But the partnership of these two characters here, right off the bat, it starts off pretty rocky, but as the story progresses here, you start to see that they have a form of a mutual respect for one another. Even though they kind of take things a little more differently and how they like to approach certain things. Sue being the veteran of this business here, whereas French is kind of just getting acquainted with this lifestyle here, if you will. And I thought that they meshed really well, even though they start off pretty rocky, but they definitely formed a partnership here. And that's one of the things that I love about this movie here too, is because although they're two opposite characters here, the way that they become acquainted with one another and the way that they form a respect for one another here, really believable. And the humor that they have amongst themselves. They have a little bickering back and forth with one another here, which is, again, a trope of some of the old 90s things that you see in these type of films here. And this definitely does a throwback of that as well, too, which I really did miss.
Banter,
I didn't realize I missed it here.
The dialogue, the chemistry the two had together was really well done. It was great, and I enjoyed it, especially the later bits as French started getting kind of in the groove of things, kind of learning what exactly it was about in the ranking and rating system. It made no sense. But to Sue and their employer,
Tommy here.
Tommy,
who's pretty much has like a reputation of doing the job, doing the required necessary things to collect the debt, or at least send the message that if you don't pay, this is what's going to happen to you. So they definitely kind of set the standard when it comes to that there. We also talked, I kind of touched upon about the development here of these two characters, because you see where they're starting off in the beginning of the movie here, and then as the story progresses, you start to realize that they form a bond with one another here. They're sharing little personal bits and information about themselves,
shared
and you
trauma,
start to reveal,
so to speak.
Yeah, pretty much. And
as the relationship grows, the tension grows, and the action tends to go, and it builds up this story, which I really enjoyed. Not that many movies, especially a lot of the stuff that we've been reviewing lately, is just build up to nothing, and it kind of lays flat. But this movie ends in a pretty
dire note.
Dire and decent note.
Yeah, it definitely ends. It definitely closes up the story, but it kind of and we'll get into that as well too. But it definitely kind of leaves on a not necessarily a sour note.
No, that's a good way to put it. A sour note, because
kind of a bittersweet ending, I would say, for this movie here. But we'll definitely get into that there. But the plot itself, because this is the thing. The movie starts off with, as we mentioned before, French having a debt to pay off. And that's the whole purpose of him getting into this business, for him to be able to collect a good amount of money in a quick turnaround here, to be able to pay off his debt, so that way he can keep his school and also keep his home. But then, as the story continues, it's just more you kind of forget about that plot. It's more, it kind of turns into something else entirely different. And then as we start to see these characters' background, if you will, of why they're getting into this here, and then what they've gotten themselves into, which is it's like they bit off more than they can chew here. And that's where really we start getting to the introduction of the villain in this movie here, which we don't get to see until later in the movie here, because again, I think the story does a good job and really just getting to know the characters through the course of the action here. Mm-hmm. And then once you start getting to the introduction of the villain, played by Tony Todd, who is fantastic in this movie. He's not in it for very long, but the amount of time that he's in the film, you definitely feel his presence, and you feel the what's the word I want to use? Like you feel his, like that revoltness. I guess I don't know if it's the right word to use, but you definitely feel like this guy is no good whatsoever.
Like this is a suitable threat to deal with. You got to be careful, or wrongest thing can make the guy go off on you.
Yeah, and he's definitely one of those guys who is in a position where, because of where he's at, he's clearly very insecure with himself, but he's using his power to get away with what he's been getting away with for such a long time, even though he's formed a partnership with French and Sue's boss here, Tommy. He's taken advantage of that situation there. And you also get the introduction of that one, and you and I talked about it before we started recording here, of his fiance. I forgot the character's name again. I've seen the film so many times I should know it by now, but I forgot her name. But she pretty much sets up where there is a character in the movie who had a relationship with one of Tony Todd's characters, whose name is Barbosa in the film, and has a relationship with one of his girls. and for whatever reason, he feels as if though that no one can have any relationship with any of his girls, and finds out that the girl is pregnant with this former employee of his, and he beats up the girl while she's pregnant. As a result, has this the daughter of this character is born prematurely as a result of this beating that he gave to this girl, and then the girl ends up dying. But now he has the daughter. This guy has his daughter from this relationship here, and then Barbossa's fiance feels the need to make things worse and reveals where this guy's live, and all of a sudden Barbossa says, we got to kill this guy because he disrespected me, and it's like this whole stupid convoluted mess.
Yeah.
But it doesn't deter from the story. It actually helps impact these development for the two characters here, because again, you have these two characters coming from opposite spectrums, whereas you're seeing Sue, who's kind of like the guy who does the job, does what needs to be done, and is willing to do whatever it takes to do that. And French, on the other hand, has some boundaries here where he doesn't. There are some things he just won't cross here, and that's where the conflict of these two characters come into play. And then you kind of get a bit of a background where you come to find out that Sue had a daughter, and his daughter died of leukemia at a very young age, and that really messes him up. And that's really was a turning point for this character here, where he is in conflict of, I got a job to do, but this little girl reminds me of my daughter, and I understand this man's position where I don't want to hurt this guy. And this position that that Barbossa's fiance puts him in here is so stupid that it could have been avoided in the first place by just not getting involved with that stuff here. So there's a lot going for that here, and that's why I really I sided with these two characters here, and I understood their complexity.
You feel their struggle. You see as the story progressed, this mystery kind of unravels. Because they took it as a typical job, and that's what it looked like. I mean, spoilers at this point, way ahead. But you eventually find out that not all was it what it seems with this job that these guys were doing. And as the story progressed, and as the stakes were getting higher, they finally realized that they were pretty much set up, leading up to the finale of the movie. But for me, and the positives that we can go into that we can kind of sum up as the chemistry between French and Sue, fantastic. And you see that build up over time. That's what me and Rob love, is that character development. And you get to see these characters grow. I do like the whole, I want to say, detective work that they were doing as they were figuring out what was going on with the debt. Yep. Great. The interactions between them and the characters. And now I mentioned it, Frenchie's French, or as Sue called
as he likes to be called, French, not Frenchie or Mr. French, just French.
Kind of coming to terms of what the job really entailed and what it was really like. It was very comedic, and a great comedic timing throughout the movie. And that was it was a balance of comedy and action and drama that really worked throughout the film. And the tone, it wasn't all over the place, but it worked enough that it kind of helped push the story along. Yeah. Especially near the end, where the more somber notes were towards the end. You kind of figure out what exactly was going on, where it was pretty much this vindictive, petty
motive behind this villain here, and it's so stupid, and it really shouldn't work. But again,
it does.
But it does, yeah.
Because at the end, you're hoping for that
the comeuppance for these two characters here.
Come to Jesus moment. It just you're kind of waiting for it, and that's kind of one of the cons that Rob and I had for the film, but we really enjoyed it. You really get to see the characterizations as it goes on and on and on and on, and that's pretty much the sums of it. That was like the film was great with that. Not to mention the soundtrack kind of helped the movie along as well. It kind of helped push the story. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. It really did help kind of bring the story to life. The cinematography was great. Especially during the action sequences and some of just the dialogue sequences between everybody, some of the shots that they used to kind of really help push the story. It was almost like watching a comic book a little bit. In
a weird way, yeah. I think you're right. That's actually a really good point. I'm going to say that I actually like that perspective of a comic book feel to it. more so than I did when you mentioned Quentin Tarantino. I see your point with that, but I never thought that at all. I did see the Training Day aspect of it here. That I did see. But the Quentin Tarantino, I didn't necessarily see that. I did see the kind of that British humor behind it, with the fish out of water kind of a feel to it. I think that definitely plays into that as well. But I never thought of this here, but I do agree with you. It has kind of that comic book feel to it because this is an over the top movie here. You know, you have these.
It's a short film.
Yeah.
The pacing was fast. You
Yeah.
got one vig to another, or as they call it, from one job to another.
Yeah.
Quickly, effectively, and it was kind of funny to see, like, this was this bad. I wonder what the next job is going to be.
Yeah. And it just keeps getting worse and worse, but because the poor French is like, he's told, as you see in your background there, and mine as well too, that he's told by Tommy, their boss, put on a suit, you got to represent me. And then the first day on the job, he sees Sue in his Coupe de Ville in this like shitty attire, smelly car. He's like,
hungover.
Oh, Tom, yeah, hungover too. He's like, Tommy told you to dress up, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, all right, well, see how long that lasts you. And then the next day, he's putting on just a regular street clothes to kind of to fit more along the lines with what the job entails, so he doesn't have to like worry about ripping up the suit, and he's got the proper clothing for the job, which is why you see why Sue dresses the way he does. He just doesn't care. And that's one of the things about this about the film that I truly enjoyed here. Now, we've covered a lot about the film about what we love about the movie here. Let's get into some of the negatives here, because I know there's a lot of things that some things that you didn't like about the film. Where before we started recording, you mentioned to me about the metaphor that kind of played into the movie here. Wow, the little bit of there's some sequences where you see these cows that are being raised for the purposes of their meat, and they're going into the slaughterhouse, and you see that progress throughout the story, which kind of shows you what the progression of these characters. They're pretty much set up for slaughter. And we talked about how Barbossa's fiance, the man. Let's get into that here, because I have so much to say about that.
There's a character that actually ended up setting up this whole situation where she felt slighted that she ended up sleeping or with another client or whatever that was working for Barbossa.
Yeah.
It was just a one night thing for him, because
after the events of what happened with his former girlfriend, and apparently she I guess wanted a piece of that forbidden fruit, if you will. And the exposition in this movie, I'm gonna have to say I give him a lot of credit here, because although there is some exposition, it's told at the right time with the right amount of details, and the rest is kind of left for your imagination to kind of just go with that.
Put together, and they did a good job.
I thought they did a great job with that, and that's why. And this is credit to the actress. Fuck that bitch, okay? Fuck her and fuck her Maserati. That's what I'm. And when you watch a film, you know exactly what I mean, because the stuff that she does to warrant this unnecessary plot here, and this is what I'm saying. It's the whole thing was unnecessary, but it works so well for the film, and she doesn't meet her. We don't see her demise. It's like she gets away scot-free pretty much, and I'm like, that's the one out of everything that could have happened in this movie. The one thing that got away is that fucking bitch was the Maserati. So
yeah,
I'm thinking
that's the one
major negative.
And it was like, really,
fuck her. So and this is the thing, Sue hits women in the movie, and he does it for the purposes of the job. Not that he wants to do it, but he knows the job entails that I got to do something, and I got to do it whether I want to or not. French, on the hands, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hit this this lady who has nothing to do. I mean, there's a lot more to this plot that we really haven't gotten into here, but it has to do with.
We gotta leave something spoiler,
right? But there's a line he doesn't want to cross, and they kind of meet in the middle with that, where like they don't want to do this here, and Sue's like, hey, the job entails here. I do what I got to do, and you meet this one woman here. And the one time where they're at pass with one another here, where they can really listen, you know what? I don't want to hit women. I don't believe in doing that stuff. And French is like, hey, I don't want to hit women either, but she fucking deserves. The one time they don't do that, they let the one person get away. I'm like, you fucking idiots! Why aren't you guys knocking this woman's head through the wall here? It's just like and that's credit to the actors. But that was my
she
only
played the role perfectly.
Oh yeah, she played.
I mean, that's a negative and there was a positive. It's like her acting was great. She played the role perfectly. To the point that it got under your skin.
It got under my skin.
This
and
is
that was
why
my
you're going to kill the guy?
pick,
Like, this is why the whole debt collecting thing happened in the first place for this final collection?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you get that dichotomy. You're like, all right, we have a job to do, but we're not going to go through with it because it's a bullshit reason. And it's just, there's no point. Which kind of leads away to how the movie ended. And you're right. Going back to the other negative, this whole sequence with the cow thing, I don't think it added anything. It just
same here.
Seemed really out of place until the ending, the actual ending of the movie, where like, you know, it kind of made sense. But to me, it looked like it was kind of like French was having some kind of mental issue in the middle of the story.
It's a major conflict with what he's doing.
Triggered or something? Yeah. Like, so it didn't really, wasn't, you know, introduced well. It wasn't used, I think, in a way that kind of made sense for the story. But as the story progressed, you kind of see like, oh, I see what they're trying to show is that these guys are pretty much set up for failure from the start.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked. But for me, it just seemed out of place. I think the movie without it, honestly, and you still would have gotten the same metaphor, the same message, especially with the way that the movie ended. Well, it ended in a sour, sweet.
Well, let's talk about that here because this is the part where the film shows the demise of the villains, of course, played by Tony Todd and Barbosa, and obviously the survival of his fucking fiance and her Maserati. But you also see French get shot at, and it looks like he may die because he walks into this car. Not his car, his Sue's car, the Coupe de Ville, the love of his life, if you will, in this movie. When you watch the film, you'll understand what we're getting at. And then Sue also is shot to death as well too. So, and then the film ends with the father and the daughter surviving, and they're obviously at peace, and they're not concerned of their well-being. They're eating dinner, and they're having steak. And that's kind of where the closure of this metaphor comes to an end there. And I actually did like the ending. This is the same director who had worked with Scott Atkins on several films here, Jesse V. Johnson, who had done Avengement, which I think is Scott Atkins' best film. But this is definitely up there, I think, is one of his best films here, too. The directing, you mentioned the cinematography. It's really, I mean, these guys work so well together. They know each other so well that you can tell that Scott Atkins, let me do the action scenes, and you can take care of everything else. And they do a great job. It's like they finish each other's sentences off really well in terms of like the storytelling here. And I think they've done a great job with this movie here. So let's close this off here. Your final thoughts on the film?
Great action film. Funny film. If you like the buddy action flicks, you'll love this. It's kind of tuned to kind of Rush Hour meets gangster film. You'll like it. Don't take it too seriously. You'll understand once the movie gets going. Suspend your disbelief, but enjoy it for the ride it is, and it's a hell of a freaking ride.
Yes, I agree. I'm going to share the same thing with you as well too. Great action film, great movie in general. This is just a fun action film, and you enjoy for the hour and a half that it is, and go on with your day. And then if you want to come back and revisit these characters here, we certainly will in the next film here. But overall, I would give this film a super high cheers. I'm sure you as well. Yeah. This is a lot of fun here. So those are our thoughts on this film here, and if you have not seen the film, check it out. Let us know what you think. And I implore you to check out Scott Atkins' filmography here because
I was just about to say, if you haven't seen the Scott Atkins films, what are you doing?
Yeah,
do yourself a favor. Go watch it. Go watch any of his films. Watch Avengement. Watch this. Oh, watch
Undisputed 2.
Undisputed 2.
You know, there's a shit ton of
The whole
movies he's done.
Boyaka series is fantastic too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he's got a lot of other work out there that you guys, if you're not familiar with his stuff, check it out. There's some stuff that are really, really good out there that you guys are doing yourself a disservice not checking this film out, because this guy is bringing back the old days of action, and this is the guy who's passionate about this stuff here too.
Yeah.
And he admits and says that, you know, I miss those old action films. I want those films to come back. This guy is bringing it back.
And this is why we do love doing it, because we love talking about it. And if you enjoyed the film, let us know. Have you seen it? Do you hate it? Do you love it? What other films do you want us to watch? Because we'd be more than happy to review them. Because the more we get to watch movies, the better for us, because we get to, you know, go into and just discuss it and get into it. Heck, even argue over it sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. But while you're here, make sure you also subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already here. And also make sure you hit that notification button bell as well too, so that way you can be aware of any of the upcoming videos we have coming down the pipeline there. And also share and like the video as well too. And also, please also help us out and spreading the word that is all new release Wednesdays here, so we can get to our numbers to 1,000 subscribers here. We're working really hard to trying to get our numbers up there, and we would really appreciate your help if you can help us do that here. And also, check out our social media accounts here as well. On Facebook and on Instagram, we are simply at New Release Wednesdays, and on Twitter at the NRW. And you can follow myself on my social media account on Instagram, Rob_Medina0585, on Twitter, RobMedina0585, and on Facebook, simply just Rob the Movie Guy. And my buddy from Another Nutty over there on the right-hand side, where can they follow you, good sir?
You can follow me on my Instagram or on my Twitter on David Is Disaster. You can follow me on my personal Facebook page, David A. Estacado. I post everything about indie wrestling, pop culture, comics, and you get to see me kind of argue with Rob every now and then.
Yes. A good one at that too.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, that is our video here. We thank you very much for joining us here today, and make sure that you also help us out here and checking out other videos as well here too. We've got a lot of other stuff working in the pipeline here for you guys to enjoy out there, and let us know what you think.
We got the sequel to this coming out. We have our Boys review coming out. We have other stuff coming down the pipeline. If you like what me and Rob do, check out what the rest of the crew is up to. They got video game reviews, comic book reviews, pop culture reviews, interviews. We have so much stuff coming down the line, not just from us, but from the rest of the crew as well.
Yeah. And until next time, everybody, you guys stay safe out there, and remember, cheers.
Cheers.
Wait.